Today I'm just going to show you a really quick overview of how to do a title search. Now before we get into this, I just want to explain to everybody, when you do your own title search, you have to know a thing or two. Okay, I wouldn't really recommend this if this is the first land deal you're ever doing. If this is just your first time dipping your toe in the water, I would strongly suggest doing your first or second deal through a title company and getting an actual full-blown title insurance policy, because as you're going to see in a couple minutes as I go through this, there's actually a lot of ins and outs and random things you have to know, and you have to have a really good eye and kind of an analytical mind in order to successfully do your own title search and really know what to look for and spot problems and things that are going to be an issue. So the whole idea of a title search, really the whole point of this is just you want to make sure that the person you're buying this property from actually owns the property. There's nothing that we call a break in the chain of title. And a break in the chain of title is when, over the years and years and decades and centuries that a property changes hands from one owner to the next, there has to be a very clear distinction. Person A sold it to person B. Person B sold to person C. Person C sold to person D. Not any skips or issues where you see the deed for person A to person B and then it skips a bunch of people and then all of a sudden you see this random person E selling to person F. Okay, you want to be able to clearly understand what is happening over the years as a property changes hands. And that's really what a title search is, in essence. There's definitely other things that can come up, other issues that can jump out at you if you're looking for them. Things like finding mortgages that you didn't know were there or liens on the property. But really just basic overview, that's what you're trying to do. So just to give you an example, if you order your own title search from an abstractor or a title company, usually this is what you're going to see, and what they'll do is they'll scan in all of the relevant deeds and recorded documents that are either outstanding or anything like that over the past 40 years, and you can tell them to go further back in time if you want, but the typical approach is 40 years, and that's usually what you'll end up getting. So this is just one of many properties I've bought over the years. And when I ordered a title search for this is what I got. It was this basically just long PDF document. Actually, I shouldn't say it was long. It was only 4 pages. But it's really just all of the deeds that changed hands over the past 40 years. And the reason there's only 4 pages is because over the past 40 years, there weren't that many transfers. It was a relatively simple deal. But this right here is the oldest deed of record. Or not of record, but within the past 40 years. And as you can see, it was sold from a Charlevoix land company, seen right there, to American Central Corporation. All right. So basically what happened here was this company here bought a ton of land in Michigan, and they sold a huge chunk of it, like dozens of parcels, to this other company. It actually kind of happens fairly often. I've seen this. It's a pretty common thing that happened back in the day. As you can see here in the legal description of the property, they just list all these different lot numbers. And that basically means that they sold a lot of properties from one company to another. So, okay, that's fine. Now, if we were really looking closely, if we knew exactly which lot number ours was, we would find it in here and verify, okay, yes, this particular lot was sold from this company to this company. And that's why it's listed on here. Now, going on to the next one, this right here is when our particular property in question was sold from the big massive land company to these people here, Thomas and Lois Weir, husband and wife. And this happened back in 1973, as you can see right there. Good, that's good to know. As a matter of fact, Thomas Weir is the person that we ended up buying this property from. So right there you can track that, American Central Corporation, who was the buyer on the previous transaction, they're now selling it to Thomas and Lois Weir. So good, everything's still tracking. Now you go to the next most recent deed, and you see that Thomas and Lois Weir, husband and wife, are transferring the property to the name of their trust. So the Thomas E. Weir and Lois M. Weir Trust. That's okay, that's all good, because as long as Thomas E. Weir, the sellers here, are the same as the buyers in the previous deed, we should be all set. So, and really this is what you would call a clear chain of title. Notice how as we went through here, There were no mortgages that popped up. There were no liens. There were no, outstanding tax forfeitures or anything like that. It was just one deed after another, and we were able to track, from seller to buyer to seller to buyer. So this is what you want to see. And particularly whenever you get a lead or a call, or you're working with a seller who's trying to sell their property to you, if you're doing your own title search, this is what you want to make sure you're seeing, is that the person you're talking to is the person that's actually listed on this deed. And I can't tell you how many times I've run across issues where if Thomas had died and for whatever reason their son or daughter or heir of some sort picked up the tax bill and had this idea that they suddenly own the property just because they started paying the taxes. Well, it doesn't work that way. It has to legally transfer from Thomas and Lois to whoever's going to own it next. And there needs to be evidence of that in this title search. So that's just definitely something you'll want to make sure of. Say in that instance, for example, what you would want to see is a copy of the death certificate of these two people and letters of authority. The letters of authority grant basically another person the authority to sell this property on their behalf after they die. So that's just one example. I mean, you can't just have somebody come up to you and say, hey, I want to sell you this property when they're not listed on the deed. There has to be some kind of an explanation there. And again, this is the kind of thing, if this is your first or second title search, I don't expect you to know all this stuff. I certainly didn't when I started doing this. I really had to kind of figure it out myself and ask a lot of questions. So, maybe one thing that you could do, get your own title insurance policy and ask them to walk you through the chain of title and explain to you why it's okay. And they can do that for you too. And they'll basically go through the chain of title just kind of like I did right here. Anyway, if you ever do find issues that you can't answer, and if it appears that there truly is a problem, in those cases, I know it's hard to say this, but I would suggest you walk away from the deal, because the last thing you want to do is end up with a property that you don't really own because the person you bought it from didn't really own it. That's just, nobody wants that to happen. It's just something you'll definitely want to watch out for. And again, that is why when I'm doing my own title searches, the only reason I ever do them is when there's a property that is just really, really cheap. As you can see, for example, this property here, back in, well, it's a little bit different because they're selling it to their trust, but it actually happens frequently when I'm working with cheap properties where I'll see them sold for $100 or $300 or really, really low prices. And those are the kind of properties when you can buy them for $100 and sell them for, say, $3,000, just kind of little rinky-dink things to make a couple grand here and there. Those are the kind of properties where you typically want to do your own title search. And I only say that because the cost of a title search is usually somewhere in the neighborhood of $100, depending on who you go to. And the cost of a title insurance policy and to have a title company close on the deal, that could be another $500. And when you only have a profit margin of $1,000 or $2,000, I totally understand the desire to keep those extra costs out of there. And doing your own title search is one way to do that. Another way you could do this is to actually go to the county recorder's office or the register of deeds and actually ask to pull these documents up yourself. And that is going to be the ultra cheap way to go. However, to do that, you actually have to go down there and do it yourself, and it takes time. Depending on the situation, you just kind of have to assess, whether or not you're comfortable doing this on your own, how much you're willing to pay or not pay. I can tell you one thing for myself, doing these title searches over the years, it has really, really helped to understand how title work works, because I can really figure out when is there an issue, why is it an issue, and just from my own knowledge, it's just been a really beneficial thing to understand how to research a property's title. There's definitely something to be said for that as well. There's really a lot to be covered here, and I realize this is a relatively short video considering how many things there are to know about a title search, but if you do decide to tackle this on your own, those are the basic things you're going to want to look for and watch out for. Thanks for watching, and good luck.